Greetings and good vibes, y'all. Welcome back to the Leon Block. I'm your guy, John Tell. Tonight, we actually are going to be talking about uh, Aunties Diaries, a Kendrick Lamar song that has been something that people have been talking about, especially within the LGBTQIA plus community, especially with Black people. And so a viewer brought it up to me, and I wanted to get into it a little bit with them, pick their brain about what their thoughts were, and listen to the song for the first time myself. So we're gonna get into what the thoughts were about that.
Lincoln Park and some of that other stuff.
Oh, I love Lincoln Park. I grew up to them.
Yeah, he was a Lincoln Park, but he also married J. Blige. You know what I mean? Because of
Same.
me, and to this day,
Same. That's me too.
Because of me.
I'm the same way. Yep.
So y'all like our '90s flair, but y'all grew up in that time.
Exactly.
I forgot y'all the same age. Like
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Some of the other stuff he did that was, he wasn't like the norm, meaning he wasn't listening to hip hop, but he knew hip hop too.
Right,
same. Because he probably got that from me, because I'm diverse. I've always listened to a little bit of everything. So, alrighty, so I'm glancing at the NPR real quick. That's what it was. I wanted to glance at the everything. And I honestly can't say I've known Kendrick Lamar lyrics. But I've listened to a few things, and now this last album, the one he did with you seen the more recent one? The one where he's changing faces?
Nah, I haven't actually listened to it yet. I saw the
thing to listen to too.
Yeah, I gotta check it out.
That's another.
I really haven't been paying attention to music lately. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, okay. Well, this one definitely for Pride Month and what's going on in the world. It's yeah, okay. So what? Okay, you tell me when you're ready, and then
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and listen to this song first.
Yeah, well, do you want? Do you want to talk? Okay, before you watch it, why don't you give a
So a couple weeks ago, there was a song or album actually released by Kendrick Lamar, and one of the songs caught the attention of a lot of folk, and I guess it caused a bit of a viral controversy. And I haven't really paid too much attention to it. You know what I mean? Like I did see posts about it and stuff, but I really haven't been on my music kick lately, to be honest. I will admit I've been slacking. I've been focused on news, but this is brought to my attention by our viewers. So we decided, we're gonna check it out, listen to it, dissect it, and give our takes on what we think about it. Break it down. We got a couple articles that we found, and we're gonna see what we think of it and what our takes are of it.
Aunties Diaries is the name of the song.
Yes.
And there's been a few articles that came across my news alerts, and one of them was from Vox, and they actually entitled their article, Kendrick Lamar's Auntie Diaries is a clumsy attempt at trans acceptance, which I have heard the song before, so my thoughts, I'll wait till afterwards.
Right.
But that title to me isn't necessarily exactly how I look at it, but there also has been controversial saying that in the LGBTQIA community that there's been kind of controversy on. Some that say they feel like it's like an anthem and they agree with it, while others are saying because of some of the comments within it, just
right.
Like the article with Vox talks about dead naming, misgendering, and also homophobic slurs. So they pointed that out in the article, and so that's why some people are against it per se. And then, as you said, there's another article. There's plenty out there, but the other one too was the NPR article. It says Kendrick Lamar's new song "Auntie Diaries" divides the LGBTQ plus community. So, having read those, giving me a little more of a perspective on other people's thoughts. But I'd love to hear yours, so I'm ready when you are to listen.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it then.
Offended. My auntie is a man now. I think I needed no one to babysit. He gave me some cash, then gave me some game. Share refreshing on the day. That's when you looked at me and smiled, said thank you. The dad chose humanity over religion.
Okay, so I'll start with you. What do you think about it? Did you listen? Do you have the lyrics?
Yes, well, pretty much for me, when I first listened to it, they even actually listening to it now, I thought about a couple things throughout. And some of the first part was when I was thinking about the words that the Vox article said about dead naming, misgendering, and the homophobic slur. And I was like, where's the dead naming at first? But I remember when he said, my auntie is a man now. But he never said that as auntie.
That's
To me,
that's misgendering. And dead naming is talking about Demetrius is Marianne now. Saying the name Demetrius, referring to who Marianne was, is dead naming.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And then, like I said, I remember when he said, my auntie is a man now. And then when he did Demetrius, like you said, he keep saying he, even though he said he's Marianne.
Right. The whole verse. Right.
We might imply that he's living, he, Demetrius, is now she, living his life, former life as he, but now is she, Marianne. And Kendrick Lamar does refer to him as he, but I look at it from him looking at it from his eyes as a child, even though he is grown now. But when you listen to the whole song and how he's describing everything, even though he is talking about how they are now, but I'm still looking at it to me from him as a child singing this, rapping these lyrics.
You're right.
So as a child and trying to understand, I don't think it was any ill intent with how he presented it.
No.
And from listening to this, also when he speaks, Kendrick Lamar speaks of his auntie, when he says auntie is a man now, he talks about how she sounds very influential to him, inspirational, talking about his first rap had to do with her, her giving him haircuts and things like that. So to me, it was like he was a child who didn't care what she was doing and how she was doing it.
I want to say real quick, do you notice the difference between the way that the trans woman was treated compared to the trans man in his life?
Yes. So you mean referring to how, well, as a trans man, it seems like they were more jealous. They said the men were jealous, but then from looking at the one that became Mary Ann, it was more of a real deeper negativity, even to the point of the religious condemnation, is the way I looked at it.
Right. As if like a trans man is more acceptable, like lesbians are more acceptable. So you just, as long as you keep that fine line, we accept you, you're cool, we don't shun you. But when it comes to a trans female, a trans woman, excuse me, it's more like we don't fuck with you at all because you're just straight up an abomination. And it seems to be more common that like trans women are shunned more by the family, and it's more of like a horrible thing compared to trans men.
Yes, I can understand that and listen to you as well. And I'm continuing to learn every day through you and other people. So if I say something that is a little off or wrong, to correct me and help educate me. So pretty much I agree with what you're saying. Like you said, they treated trans man more like a jealous thing, like this is competition. But then the trans woman, like you said, was more of a negative thing, kind of goes along with when people talk about women in general being a certain way, and it's negative when women do certain things, but then men it's praise. So it was kind of still with that same kind of mindset to me.
It's indicative of the patriarch. It's indicative of the patriarchal white supremacist society that we live in, and everything models and mocks that. So even within our own queer community, men are still thrown to the top, even in the black queer community, even in the black queer trans community. Men are thrown to the top. Trans men specifically, it's seen as more beautiful, more acceptable because it's men. Trans women are thrown at the bottom. And that's why we're always, and within our community at this point now especially, it's important to lift trans women up because they're the most oppressed out of all of us.
Okay. And I got you on that. Like you said, I can see that, and I see, pretty much when I think about communities, black communities in particular, like women that, are lesbian, that even just being a lesbian, even if they say, both say, I'm a woman, nothing changed. I'm not saying one is like trans or whatever, both just say, I'm a woman, but I like women. That does seem to be more, like you said, accepted versus the other way. If a man, transitions to a woman, that it is not as accepted. And another portion of what he said throughout this was when he mentioned about how this was way before when he used the Caitlyn Jenner situation. And this goes back to what I've been saying to people is that say things are trends or things just happen. I always say things have been happening. It's just maybe you didn't pay as much attention to it because growing up, I feel like we always had somebody where somebody said somebody was like that goes along with this homophobic slurs that, like being used in here, calling somebody a faggot or calling somebody a dyke. And growing up, it was like accepted, but those are words that I always cringed on because I didn't feel they were appropriate. Even as a child, I didn't feel comfortable with them. And now, even more so, I don't use those words. I never, like I said, I don't like them in my vocabulary. And right now, when people say it, I do correct people or have an issue with it. It's just like
the thing is, like saying like dyke, it's crazy because growing up, even for me, it was seen as offensive, but now apparently it's like it's accepted. Like there's the Dyke March in Philly,
and I think
growing up, queer was supposed to be offensive, and faggot was supposed to be offensive, and now it's seen as like a positive thing, just like saying bitch is a positive thing now,
Well, I'm not gonna say they're positive because for me, I still look at it when people say it. So is that what you're saying? Is that some people in the trans community have taken it to say
the words dyke, faggot, bitch, cunty, cunt are seen in the same sense as nigga.
Okay, so you're teaching me today because that's something that when I was thinking about. When it said
think about how it splits the black community. Like some people don't like the word nigga, and some people use it very, freely. It splits the queer community as well. Some people are very offended by all of those words, or one or two or one or whatever, or any variation in between. And some don't care about any of them. They use all of them freely. It depends on the age. It depends on the person. There's older people that use them. There's younger people that use them. There's older people and younger people that don't use them.
Well, for me, I'm still in the mindset of not using them. But you're teaching me, like I said throughout this, is
I say bitch, I say cunty, I say faggot. Depends on who I'm, who I'm talking to. I don't use the word dyke because I grew up like I'm not a lesbian, so I always found it offensive and still do. But some lesbians, especially like more we call them like butch lesbians, I guess. Well, I guess some lesbians just don't find it offensive. They embrace it, kind of like I would with the word faggot or nigga.
So I guess that goes along with the controversy within this song is that some find, like I said, the dead naming, the misgendering, and the homophobic slur that Vox article mentioned is referring to the word faggot being used multiple times. And again, when I go back to the song, is he's looking at it from elementary and middle school in the 90s. So that pretty much I can say, even though, I was already older and grown, that it was still being accepted during that time. And as a child, again, growing up, he didn't know, any different, didn't really know it was considered a negative thing. But it seems like when he talked about the trans woman in his life, that you could tell that some things were different, and how people treated her at that time. So that's where I feel like maybe he noticed that there are some negatives to using those words and how words can be hurtful to people.
Yep.
That's what I got a little bit out of this as well. The song is something that should be looked at as negative.
No, I think it's more it's something that should be highlighted to express and explain the dialogue of the black communities and how things are layered and complicated with us, and it's not as black and white as like other communities, especially white folk, make it out to be, and they're so quick to call out this is unacceptable or this is wrong or this is offensive, and it's like, okay, yeah, of course it is, but that's not the point here. Like, understand that this is also a point of, in some sense, liberation for some. and it still is like offensive to some even within the black communities that have already been liberated in a lot of senses. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm following you. I'm listening. I'm listening to you. You know, I pretty much listen to you. But yeah. So like I said, I always look at Kendrick Lamar again as, like I said, a lyricist, a poet, a storyteller, and again, look at it from his perspective, but as a child. And to me, if you look at it from that, I don't see how it could be seen as a negative because of the story that he's telling and based on the era that he's telling it from through his eyes. And to me, I also look at it as he, though other people may have looked at his aunt at the time and his cousin at the time as something was wrong with them, that he looked at them for who they were as people.
Right.
And he didn't let that change how he felt about them, even though he was raised with some of the, the negative things that were within the community. And how he described, which to me, I don't usually say certain words, like when he described how he described it to his friends about what his aunt did, to women and the way he looked at it, and it's almost like he didn't look at it as a negative. Like he said, he wanted to be like his auntie.
I see what you're saying. It's kind of like the Chappelle thing in a sense. Like it's definitely like a step in the right direction, but it's not something that should necessarily warrant accolades of any sort. I think it's just a step in the right direction. It's kind of like pat on the back, good job kind of thing, keep going kind of thing. That's my perspective on it.
Gotcha. But the bottom line is, I feel like it was more of an acceptance. I would love to find something that explaining it, which it probably is out there, to hear what he truly meant, because we're looking at it from through our eyes, and again, also why so much controversy because we're all looking at it through different scopes. And I really would love to hear his main words for this particular song that he has made. But I don't see it as something I will be singing all day long, so to speak.
Right.
But I definitely feel like I'm going to listen to it yet again. Yeah. I feel like songs like these are ones that I may read it, listen to, and still digest it a little different the next time around.
Yeah.
Because this is my third time listening to this song.
Gotcha.
So I listened to it. First time was more the music. I heard the lyrics, but I didn't really hear the lyrics. And the second time, I was like, after I read an article, I was like, okay, let me listen again to what I was listening to.
Right.
And then I listened more to the lyrics. And then now, talking to you again, I listened to the lyrics on another level. So I think I got it, but one more time might help me to get my full understanding. But overall, I feel like it's not a negative thing. It was never meant to be negative. And from what you said as well, the acceptance, you're saying that some people within the LGBTQ plus community accept the words. So with that being said, that gives me a different perspective on how some people might view it. So I have a few other friends I might try to reach out to, just to see what their thoughts are on it and go from there.
It's just the same as like all black people have different opinions and viewpoints on stuff. Same with queer folk, and this is definitely an issue or a topic that definitely has polarized people, and people have different opinions about this. And I definitely can see all sides of it. It's definitely one of those moments in history where we're reckoning with a lot, especially within the black communities in general, and that includes black queer people too. Um, going to Philly Pride the other day and seeing how black trans lives were thrown to the forefront and highlighted and uplifted was very endearing, and it meant a lot to see that. It meant a lot to see the focus be on black and brown queer folk in general. And we need more of that. We need more of that upliftment. So, I will take this as a compliment, but it's a step in the right direction. There needs to be more We need to see more of this. We need to see like something like a collaboration between Kendrick Lamar and Lil Nas X. That would be a bigger thing than talking about this in this kind of sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can see that. Actually, I can see that. Though. With certain artists, I feel like they could do it without any problem or concern, and I can
Why
see
haven't
that.
they?
I can
You know
see
what I
that.
mean? That's my thing. Because I know that he reached out to tons of artists and no one accepted his offer except for Kid Cudi. But by that point, the album was already done.
Mm. Okay.
You know what
Well,
I
that's
mean?
interesting.
So yeah, like he
But
have
I
reached
get
out
it
to
though.
hella
I mean, like I
artists.
said, from the music perspective, and I think like it's to know that other people are out there that are allies and that do support, more than what people believe. And I think there's more allies out there. Some of them are still secret allies, even though you can't be an ally if you're in secret. However, I feel like some people still are trying, to speak up and speak out, but sometimes still overpowered depending on the situation and the environment that they're in.
Right.
So I feel like there are some more people out there that people don't realize want to or trying to. And I know you might say, well, they're still like maybe almost like being in the closet of being an ally, so to speak. But I feel like some people are coming around more and that discussions like this are needed. And my thing with people is you treat people as humans, you treat people as people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been the way I looked at life and people that I encounter. That it's like not a judgment zone for me to look at them and say, well, you're in the LGBTQ community and I shouldn't like you, or stereotype you into being a bad person because you still are a person. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody transitions, they're still a person. I've seen someone that transitioned and they held a job, had a family, all the whole nine. But their family did accept them when they transitioned and they went on with their life and continued in the same profession. However, they did transition and they live their life happily now and happier because of the transition.
Right.
So again, it didn't change them as a person. Might be in the appearance, some things might look different and people might have been like, oh, I can adjust to this or how am I going to adjust or with the misgendering maybe in the beginning trying to understand and not intentionally being mean to misgender, but there are some people that are like that too that do things to be hurtful. But I feel it's important to accept and if somebody does correct you to, just a sincere apology and try to move forward with it. I have a friend who I know that is recently through transition, and I go back and forth with he and she all the time because of how I've known them growing up. So now it's kind of like, okay,
It's the same
it's
as
not a negative intention, it really
I
is
know,
me
but it's
trying.
something you practice just like when someone gets married or someone changes their name. It takes practice. You just learn to practice to change, not refer to them in that pronoun anymore.
Yes, like a different title, or even just a title.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
people might have a title that you've been around them and
They
you
used to be
call them that,
Mrs.
but
and
if you
now they're
might become
Ms. Yeah.
become a certain level or a certain position, it's like okay,
Right.
it changes, so you just got to get used to whatever that title is,
Right.
so to speak.
Right.
Even though it's deeper than that, gender is to me deeper than just the title, but I'm not minimizing it to that. But to me, those are examples in I'll say in my everyday real world life of working and things like that. That sometimes like that, even though somebody might not get as upset if you call them something else, as somebody would if you misgender them. However, it is something that's a change. It takes time to adjust to.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this, and I'm glad that you chose to take a few minutes to speak on this
Of
and to
course.
listen to it. And I hopefully you listen to it again since this was your first time.
No, I definitely will. I
So
definitely will. I think
yeah,
there's a couple more layers to peel back on this. It definitely speaks to a lot. And I'll definitely go through. I say definitely a lot, but I'm I'm definitely gonna go through the articles and read them. Uh, at a later time and see how what I can pick out from the lyrics and point out and talk about more because it's something I really haven't touched on. I kind of there's so much other stuff going on. This is kind of like a nice relaxing moment to take in something else and see what other people are talking about other than world news.
Still, hot topic, so to speak, as people say.
Right.
I think it was worth for you to discuss with, the audience that you do have. And I feel everyone out there will appreciate it. And hopefully will chime in on the conversation and dialogue as well.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it to my attention because, I mean, like I said, it's been in my sphere. I just haven't. Yeah. So I appreciate it.
No problem.
So I want to get into the lyrics. Excuse me, the article really quick from Vox that speaks to, well, it just breaks down things a little bit. This is after a 5-year break. Rapper Kendrick Lamar has returned with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, his final album under Top Dog Entertainment imprint. The album offers 18 tracks, split in half into an A side and B side. Fans are excited about his project, but it has its shortcomings. While tracks like Count Me Out and Mother Sober skillfully discuss topics like spirituality and family trauma, the highly anticipated return from the 14-time Grammy winner is muddied with uneasiness by way of homophobic and transphobic slights on track 15, titled Aunties Diaries. The song purports to peer into the pages of Lamar's diary, looking across the years at his relationship with his transgender uncle and cousin. Auntie Diaries wants to reconcile two somewhat opposed concepts: the journey he's been on to understanding his loved ones, and the devotion he still feels to religion and the teaching he's grew up learning. It's a deeply felt tension among many in the black communities, but Lamar isn't quite able to bring the tension to a place of a proper release. Such heavy subject matter comes at the risk of carelessness due to the use of microaggressions that are often seen as harmless to those not on the receiving end, cisgender people. Since the album's release, it immediately sparked discourse surrounding Auntie Diaries, questioning if the art and its intended message outweigh the harm done. There seem to be two prominent sides, either prepared to absolve Lamar or condemn him. But it's not that black and white. It's as gray as the world we live in. Some fans are revering the song as a pro-LGBTQ+, specifically trans anthem in hip-hop, a revolutionary development for a genre that has long helped fuel the flames of hate toward queer folks. While it is understandable why listeners might come to this conclusion, it is not entirely the case. Although Lamar may be well-intentioned in aiming to tell a story about learning from his ignorant past, his lyrics have not transcended that past. Auntie Diaries falls into harmful tropes, including dead naming, misgendering, and using a homophobic slur. For those of us living at the intersection of being black and queer, good intentions are not enough, especially when active harm comes with them. In black communities that revere religious teachings, queerness and questions about gender identity are often fraught topics, written off as inherent sins and not up for further debate. There is little space in these communities for the queer black experience, but there's also an expectation that queer people should be able to understand and forgive religious homophobia. And to some degree, an understanding must be given to black queer people who believe there was a better way to deliver the intended message of Auntie Diaries. At the beginning of Auntie Diaries, Lamar repeats, quote, heart plays in the ways the mind can't figure out, followed by a spiritual teacher and #1 New York Times bestselling author Eckhart Tolle narrating, this is how we conceptualize human beings.
This intro also gives a disclaimer that the track will tell the story of how Lamar grew up and learn how to conceptualize the queer people in his family while in a religious environment that condemned them. In verse 1, Compton native recalls misunderstanding his uncle's queerness as a child. Then he shifts to the present day and explains his ideologies and affirms his uncle's gender, all while describing all the things he looked up to him for and loved about him. Weaving back into his mindset as a kid, Lamar pulls from childhood memories to show his love for his uncle as a person who was always present in his heart. The verse articulates the nature versus nurture that plays out within children who intrinsically love their family members but learn to resent those who don't conform to the binary. Lamar shares his adolescent confusion fueled by the hate he witnessed his uncle experience from their family. Quote, ask my mama why my uncles don't like him that much, and at the parties, why they always want to fight him that much. For many queer folks with nieces and nephews, this is the flip side of an experience that rings true. For the past 15 years, I've been an Auntie, my recent preferred title as a non-binary person. My niece and nephew, whom I love unconditionally, have witnessed the vitriol from religious family members who saw me as nothing more than an abomination. They have wondered about the same questions young Kendrick did. I have my one-on-one relationships with them, and they know me as someone loving, caring, and respectful. Still, these two conflicting views create an internal battle of binary ideologies, not around gender, but of what is right and what is wrong. It's a lot for any child to unpack, and it's a context that is important to understand when considering the intention of Auntie Diaries. Throughout the song, the homophobic slur appears first in verse 2. Lamar uses it to admit his adolescent's ignorance of the words harm and how it was commonly understood to be synonymous with joking around. In verse 2, Lamar raps, quote, back when it was comedic relief to say faggot, 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 we ain't know no better, elementary kids with no filter. There's truth to these bars. To this day, homophobia and transphobia are justified by comedians. Take, for example, the 2021 high-profile critique of comedian Dave Chappelle's Netflix special, The Closer, which he included transphobic jokes. The defense for many is that as long as it's meant to be a joke, it doesn't qualify as harm. This ideology is especially present in Black religious communities like the one Lamar grew up in. It's an ideology that he tries to critique honestly by stating his complacency, but his delivery is clunky at best. Lamar is as familiar as anyone with the way that words can hurt, especially bigoted words spewed by an outsider. In 2018, Lamar brought a white fan on stage to rap at his 24 track to rap his 2012 track Mad City with him. The fan rapped the lyrics verbatim using the N-word numerous times. This led Lamar to cut the fan off, saying, you gotta bleep one single word. This event would serve as an example of the harm bigoted words can cause to a community when spewed by an outsider who has no right to reclaim them. At the end of Auntie Diaries, his cousin Marianne says, Kendrick ain't no room for contradiction. To truly understand love, switch position. Faggot, 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 we can say it together, but only if you let a white girl say nigga. But while well-intentioned, Lamar still contradicts himself by choosing to say the F slur on the song in the name of art instead of bleeping it out. You gotta bleep one single word doesn't register here from him. This ultimately outweighs what is a well-intentioned raw reflection and makes it fall flat. Another harmful misstep is the song's consistent misgendering, which casts a pall over his attempts to unlearn his ignorance toward queer and trans people. In the song, Lamar raps, my auntie is a man now. I think I'm old enough to understand now. In the song, Lamar raps, My auntie is a man now. I think I'm old enough to understand now. Drinking Parmesan with her hat turned backwards. While acknowledging his uncle as a man, Lamar still refers to him as an auntie and her, invalidating their gender identity. He does not. He does this again in verse 3, but this time also dead naming his cousin Mary Ann. Lamar raps, Demetrius is a man now. Demetrius is Mary Ann now. He's more confident to live his plan now. Those two lines are so contradictory. In verse 4, Lamar raps about Mary Ann, who was more religious and subservient than he was to the spiritual teachings they grew up with. When their preacher singles out Mary Ann, Lamar begins to question those teachings. He stopped misgendering her, acknowledging that she was exactly who she's always been, the cousin he had loved since childhood. The juxtaposition of religion and being queer is one of reality. It's often assumed queer people aren't spiritual or cannot hold certain religious beliefs because many organized religions see us as sinful. The same thing happened to me when I came out at 17. The church I grew up in my whole life turned its back on me. The gossip got so bad that I would fake being sick to miss service and bargain internally that all would be fine if I did not act on my supposed sin. But that suppression ate at me from the inside until I realized that if God truly made no mistakes, then I was precisely who I was meant to be. Seeing such hate led even my own Southern Baptist mother to question her beliefs. We stopped attending church. Something similar clicks for Lamar when his cousin Marianne is singled out by their congregation as he raps, quote, the day I chose humanity over religion, the family got closer, it was all forgiven, end quote. Lamar's realization, the leading with the heart and loving thy neighbor is the way, is a testament to his attempt to grow more open-minded. He is trying to take back the intro of Auntie Diaries about the battle between heart and mind. It shows that while still ignorant, he is willing to start seeing things differently than what he's known. That sliver of understanding is why I believe the intent behind the song was genuine and not in bad faith. But because of this, it can also be a place for him to receive critique and listen to queer and trans folks so that he can become a true ally. The subject matter of Auntie Diary should have been handled with more care. True allyship requires nuance, and with more actionable methods, his intentions would be clearer cut. Perhaps a feature from a queer rapper who could directly speak to the experience of receiving such hate from family would have helped the case here. There are many other queer rappers who could have fulfilled this gap, including Santana, Lil Nas X, Isaiah Rashad, and others who have the background to discuss these issues. In moments like this, it's important to amplify and listen to the critiques of queer and trans people who want to be respected as the human beings we are. For many cisgender heterosexual people, doing the bare minimum is seen as full acceptance, despite ignorantly misgendering, dead naming, and using the F slur the way Lamar did. Many of us understand that breaking the binary one was taught as a process, but are we not deserving of the same grace and understanding to be heard, loved, and shown humanity? I believe we are, and it starts with hearing us out about our firsthand experiences. When we call out the harm done to our community, give us the grace to listen. The links for these articles, not just the one that I just read, are in the comments. This specific one came from Vox. There's one from NPR as well. And definitely check out the lyrics too, so you can read and get a deeper understanding of what Lamar's trying to say and what the article is trying to say as well. So, that was it for tonight. We just wanted to dig deep into talking about some topics that are very pertinent to not just the Black experience, but the queer experience and the Black queer experience. And while we're talking about that, spread the word. We are having our first event in honor of Juneteenth, but also on Pride during Pride Month. So we are celebrating and uplifting the Black queer experience and talking about it and the history behind it. We'll have singers, painters, poets, dancers, DJs, drag queens, food, history, meditation, and more. On this flyer, you can scan the donate QR codes and the social media QR code links so you can check out the rest of our social media. It's a free event. It's BIPOC, queer, neurodivergent, and kid-friendly space brought to you by us in combination with Lidditz Chooses Love. So, yo, that was it for tonight. Really appreciate that. We really appreciate y'all tuning in. It's always a pleasure. And I hope you got both sides of this argument and really got the different intricacies of this issue, because it is layered and it comes from many different perspectives, the layers. So, again, yeah, definitely appreciate y'all. Make sure you are meditating on your path. Make sure you celebrate your being, liberate your spirit, and educate yourself. I'm John Tell. This is the Leon Black Independent Media. Have a good one.